Welcome to the Spiritual Lifestyle Podcast, formerly known as Chapters of Motherhood. I'm your host, Veronica Moss, and I've returned with an evolved vision. I'm currently in studio passionately crafting brand new episodes set to officially debut in the spring of 2024. We now focus on promoting spiritual growth in all areas of life, including career, relationships, and mindful parenting. While you're waiting for the new season to kick off, why not revisit some of the classics? We've got your favorite episodes from Chapters of Motherhood lined up for your enjoyment. So sit back, relax, and let the Spiritual Lifestyle Podcast lead you on a journey of self-discovery and growth. Stay tuned. Welcome to your renewed spiritual sanctuary, the Spiritual Lifestyle Podcast. Chapter 26, Sister Mom. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Chapters of Motherhood podcast. We are joined by Jennifer Garcia to talk about her early introduction of being a quote-unquote mom to her siblings. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay, so quick background, just so that everybody knows. Jennifer is my niece. Her mom and I are first cousins, and that makes you my niece, right? I think that's how we
I think
it is.
Yeah,
right?
I think
it's very confusing, but your mom is my first cousin, and I grew up a little bit with her, and she used to take me out on little adventures into the park and things like that. So, and I do remember you being born. I do remember you being a little girl, and I do remember you guys growing up. And I remember being very impressed with you because you liked school a lot, or at least that's what I remember anyway.
Yeah. My mom, she was a stay-at-home mom. She met my dad when she was 19. She had her first child at 20. And then shortly I came after, and then it followed by my 6 sisters and 2 brothers. So my dad worked a lot. In some ways it was like normal upbringing, I thought, because I had my brothers and sisters. My mom was there at home with me, and it was, a nice kind of setting. We lived in a 5-bedroom house, Section 8 home that my mom applied for and got. So I've always drifted to school education, just because I also saw the suffering that they have gone through. My mom kept on having more kids. And in some ways, now that I'm an adult, I kind of see it as she had more kids so she can get a bigger check, on a welfare check. So that was her job, just having more kids. So I just wanted to drift away from that. And I also listened to a lot of my extended family, which my uncles and aunts, and just go to school, get good grades. And so I was, in some ways, I guess, trying to impress them, okay, I'll do it. I'm going to go to school. And I was in the bright side, I guess, in school. So I was invited to join the GATE program and then honors program later on. So I always wanted that, that education, but it was very hard at home because my mom kept on having more kids and everything, in the Mexican family, and I'm sure with other cultures, but it went to the oldest children. Right. So we had to take care of a lot of diapers, take care of the toddlers, of the other kids, and make sure this is good for them. So there was a lot of stress at home. And like any person, my mom had a lot of stress with so many kids. So I have 6 sisters and 2 brothers. We are a year apart, I think at most 2.5 years apart. So she started having kids at 20 years old, and her last baby was at 34. So in 14 years, she had 9 children. So it was a lot. So my mom, and the outside, if you saw in, it kind of looked normal in some ways. Like we had to behave when we were out and fight, with family gatherings and so forth. But inside the home, it was very different. She was very different. She was very defensive when we were trying to give her criticism or, Mom, you're not supposed to do that. And she was very defensive. And if you were not 100% on her side, then you were 100% against her. And that's what it felt like my whole life. So, for example, there was times that I wasn't following what she had asked me to. So she would completely shut me off. She wouldn't talk to me. And when she didn't talk to you, you couldn't eat the food she cooked. She wasn't washing for you. And so I just learned pretty quick, like it's either I'm on her good side or I'm really on her bad side. And I'm going to, kind of go through hell for months at a time. Like she wouldn't get over things fast. Like it took a very long time for her to get over things.
And it would be something like, I don't want to eat this right now. Or was it something like?
It was like, well, I don't want to change the kid's diaper. I'm not their mom. You can take care of that. And then she would retaliate in that, like, no, you're the sister. And okay, then don't change it. And, after that, when you start speaking truth, like, kind of like, I'm busy, I'm playing, I don't want to go do this. Then she would ask and completely, made the situation about her.
Right.
Yeah. So that was pretty much, my upbringing. I learned how to cook, obviously when the time that she wasn't cooking for me. But during my teenage years, it escalated. Like she, and also I was rebelling. So I was a little bit more outspoken. If I said something to her that she didn't like, and it might have been, I was saving my money and the elotero man would pass by, right? And I would use my dollar to buy a raspado. And she had bought elote, all, like 3 items that she did not want to share with anybody. And
these were treats.
Yeah, just treats. So she didn't want to share with any of the other kids. She wanted me to share and everybody else to share, but she wouldn't share. She had like 3 items to herself, but she did not want to share. And, I'm a teenager, so I'm like, no, I buy it with my money. I'm not going to share. So, and I was pretty assertive in some way. So she got really mad at me. She, slapped me. And of course, I'm like, it doesn't hurt me. Like, is this what you're going to do? And I just challenge her and slap me again. So I probably, that situation, I got slapped maybe like 5 times. Then I went to my room and I started crying, of course. But it was just like little things that would happen like that. And so when I was a teen, she got very upset with me and she started, so I couldn't eat the food she had made. And she made it very known, like, you cannot eat this. This is not for you. This is for your brothers and sisters who listen to me. So I started cooking by myself, getting the canned food, and, like an egg and, make my own thing. And then she would get upset. She's like, no, this is the food that I bought. You didn't buy it, so you cannot use it. And regardless, I'm like, I'm not going to listen to that. I'll just continue doing my own thing. But then it came to the point where she would lock the fridge. So we had the two doors that open up towards you, and she would put a chain and a lock on it. So then I would resort to either getting something that is there, fruits or something outside the fridge. And then she would hide all that and put it in the garage. And in the garage, she switched the lock. So the top lock was facing you that you needed a key, and the bottom lock was facing the inside of the garage where you needed a key to either get in or get out. So little things like that where I had to like just be a step ahead of her. I didn't really have a lot of support. I would call my grandma. My grandma would tell me like, well, what do you mean you're not eating? Like, you look like you're eating, you're thick, and we've always been thick. Like, I think all of our sisters, but during that time, I would ask my dad, like, can I have $1? I would walk to the grocery store and get like pan dulce, like a concha or, something like that was cheap and filling, or cup of noodles. And, so that's what I would resort to. So I remember asking, I would talk a lot to Uncle Gabriel. And, if anybody out there knows of Uncle Gabriel, he's very raw, honest, and he doesn't care what, if he hurts your feelings, he's going to tell you the truth. Yeah. So I would call him because he was the only one that would speak up and say things to her. And he was skeptical. He was like, I don't think she's locking the fridge. I'm like, she is, Anyway, so one of the days that I called him, he was in a nearby area, and he stopped by, and he saw the fridge, and he saw that it was locked. He saw the garage that was locked, and he was very upset. So he took me to the grocery store, got some food, and then waited for my mom to get home because she wasn't home. And, he let her have it. Like, that is not okay. Doesn't matter how upset you get, It was like that, just the upbringing. I didn't have, I had some people to count on, which is the family, but we also lived far away, or, like an hour away. So we didn't have anybody nearby to assist.
Right.
So at 17, I decided to move out. I left the house and I went to go live at my friend's house. I was working at the time, and I just didn't really want to be around it anymore. I had gone through a lot of things, and I just wanted to leave. So I left. I went, like I said, to my friend's house, and I was working, so I was paying rent, helping
Can
with
I
the
ask
bills.
you, I'm sorry, Jennifer, really quick, can I ask you, when you decided to leave and you told mom and dad, what were their reactions?
Oh, I didn't tell them. I just,
Oh, you did.
no, we would, I would leave at times, and I would stay at my friend's house for a week, a month, and nobody knew. Like, they didn't even care. They wouldn't look for me. Oh, and I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. There was an incident before. So I was about 15 years old, and I was already in high school. And my mom, she did send us to a better school than the school that we were assigned to. So she had to drive us there because it was pretty far. And one of the mornings, my sister and I got in a fight. I have my older sister who was going to high school with me as well. And she ran to my mom, woke her up earlier than expected. So she went to go she told on me. And my mom came out. She was furious. She was very mad. So she wanted to hit me. And of course, I didn't want to be hit. So then I ran away. And my mom's a larger woman. So it was easier to, run away. So I ran away. We lived across the street from a elementary school. And I had left my backpack in the front seat because I wanted to sit in the front seat. And my mom was so upset that I had run away and she's not getting me. So she opened up my backpack and threw everything out in the middle of the street. We lived on the boulevard, and the elementary was across the street. It was, I think Thursday morning. So there's traffic there, people dropping off their kids. And I remember I went over there. I mean, I was in high school, and I was in honors in high school. So I had a lot of work. I had a lot of stuff in my backpack that I needed. So I'm there in the middle of the street picking it up. The principal comes towards me and asks me, like, what happened? And I think they knew because they have windows on the office, and we lived across the street from the office. And then I was like, oh, my backpack fell. He's like, did your mom drop it? Like, no, and it was just a fear of like, no, like, I don't want to tell on her, like, if something
You were
happens.
afraid that something worse was going to happen.
Exactly. Like, we always had like, oh, so you're going to be telling, and the social worker's going to come and you're going to go to foster care. And we thought foster cares were the worst. And, like, that's the way that they told us.
Right.
So I was like, no, it fell. So I'm picking everything up. They helped me because I'm in the middle of the street and it's a very busy time. So they started helping me. And I went towards the window of my room and I asked my sister, like, open the window, like, let me jump in. She's like, no, my mom does not want me to open the window for you. And, and we knew, like I said, if you're with her or you're not with her. And so we had very extreme repercussions. So I understood. I was like, okay, well, I don't know what to do. Like, my mom's not going to take me to school. It's so far. It's, and it's a lot of hills. Now I'm not walking. So I just didn't know what to do. So I placed my binder and all the papers that fell on top of a patio table in the backyard, and my mom comes around again. And I'm like, God, I really don't want to get hit. So I'm running still. I am running. So she got upset. She got my binder and threw it to the neighbor's house. They had the sprinklers on. So everything was messed up inside. So I just ran out. I went to my junior high. I walked there because it was nearby, and I talked to the counselor. So they called the social worker. And so social worker got involved. I knew my mom was going to be upset, but at this point, I really did not know what to do. And I just didn't think it was fair. Like, I'm going to go back and, you're going to hit me, and she would hit, very hard. So I was like, nope, not doing it. So anyways, they talked to us. They actually sent me back to school. So the social worker drove me. I was sobbing and crying because it was, I guess it was a lot for me to take on that day. And I was crying. I remember we were watching a movie, and I walked into my fifth period English class, and I was just crying. And I'm like, this is so embarrassing. Like, I'm 15 years old. Like, I'm in high school, and this is like the most embarrassing thing I've ever endured. So after that, they recommended for us to go to therapy. So I did therapy with her. It was 1 week alone by myself with my therapist, and the other week, my mom, myself, my therapist, and her therapist. So it was kind of like that. And my mom portrayed to be the best mom. Like, I don't know what's wrong with her. I do this for her. I do that for her. And still, like, in fear of starting or opening up a bigger case or starting anything, I would change my stories so the person, my therapist, wouldn't see how bad I had it at home. So it was, it was in fear. And after 3 months, my mom, I don't know what happened, something switched. And my mom was like, you know what? I don't like her. She doesn't listen to me. I think she should go somewhere else. I cannot deal with her. And I regret having her. And like just all these hurtful words that, mother, you shouldn't say. So I remember I had to go back home with her, and they took me home with her. But I couldn't. I didn't want to be home. So I stayed at my friend's house for it took maybe like a couple friends. So I stayed at two different friends' house for 2 weeks. But I was so depressed. I was crying. Like they had saved their money, and I'm sorry. Like they took me to like knots. They're like, come on, let's go out. And I just didn't want to. It was just like, just let me be, But yeah. So like I had a lot of friends who supported me a lot through my high school years.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So and also I think for me, I always chose friends who had it better. And I think that's part of the reason that has pushed me to be a better person as well. Because I saw like, this is what I want. This is what I don't want.
Right.
Yeah. So that had happened. So yeah. So at 17, I moved out. I didn't tell my parents. I moved in with my friend. And I remember I was working, so I had forgotten my name badge in the room. And so I walked in, and I just literally wanted to get my name badge. And they had, switched the room already. They had, like the new person was going to move in. My new sister, my sister was going to move in. So I was looking for my name badge. Well, she was kicking me out. She's like, you don't live here. You need to leave. Like, I just need my name badge. I have work right now. And she didn't understand. She called the cops on me. So I was like, you know what? Not worth it. I'll just tell my manager I need a new name badge. So I went to work, and then the cops showed up at my work, and my mom had called. So they told me, you know what? Just don't go. Just stay away from there. So I did. So we didn't talk for, I would say, like a year and a half after that. So yes, I was 17. But shortly after that, from what I heard, they had lost the Section 8 home. I think once that happened, they didn't have the house as a foundation. So my mom and my dad split. My mom started dating other people, and she would leave my brothers and sisters around at this friend's house, that friend's house, and, like anywhere that she could, basically. Mm-hmm. So social services got involved again, and they took the kids, I think, and that's probably when I was 19. And they took them away. They went to go stay with our aunt for 6 months. So that way my mom or my dad can get their life together and provide something stable for the 5 kids that she had remaining. Mm-hmm. So because everybody else had moved out.
At this point, your oldest sister had moved out, you had moved out, and then the one right after you also moved out with a friend, right? And so there was 5 left.
Yes. So right? All my sisters moved out. They, got a boyfriend. They, got pregnant and started their own family very young to move out of this household. So
they
it
were
was
like in their teens, very young.
Yeah, teens. Yeah. Because I was 17 when I moved out, and my older sister had moved out already. And then my younger sister, one of them got pregnant at 15, so she had moved out. Like she only had 6 inside the house after that, but then 1 left, and so at the end it was 5. Okay. And so she was, roaming around with 5 kids anywhere she could.
And at this point, they didn't have an actual home?
No, they didn't have a home. And she was really good at outsourcing any help from like the government. So I know they had like the hotel paid sometimes. So she would stay at a hotel. And after I remember, my sisters would tell me, the younger ones, that they were at the hotel for over a day, and my mom didn't show up. They were waiting for her, and they went, my one of the younger sisters, not the oldest one in the room, one of my sisters said, you know what, I'm just going to go to the front and ask them to borrow a phone so I can call my mom and she can come. Well, the manager there, or the receptionist, saw her and recognized, like, okay, they've been here and where's the mom? So they called the cops and they showed up and they noticed that they had been there for over a day without an adult. So then she got in trouble. And I believe that's what set off them going to our aunt's house to stay there for the 6 months.
Okay.
And our aunt, the one that had him, she has one daughter and she's a month older than me. So, she got them to help, but, she's had a lot of stuff going on too. So I remember calling her and asking her, like, hey, do you need help? I can go over in a weekend and just take care of them. So she would leave and, I would take care of them for the weekend and I would, help out in that way. At that time, I wasn't driving though. So I would either take the bus to Downey, and I was in Montclair. So take the bus there, or she would pick me up at times as well. So I was helping her out. And then the kids, I didn't know, but they went into foster care. So my mom, my dad weren't able to take them. She, it was a lot. It was a lot for her to handle with five kids. And, they had gone through a lot. So they weren't that easy to manage. Mm-hmm. So they went to foster care. And I remember calling my aunt, like, hey, I haven't heard from you. And just want to know, like, do you want me to go over? Like, I can take care of them. And she told me, like, I'm sorry. They went into foster care. And I remember just being shocked, very shocked. And
can I tell you what I remember?
Yeah.
I do remember the incident of your mom throwing the backpack in the middle of the street. Mm-hmm. I remember that it was a big thing. I remember that your Aunt Elaine, my cousin, really yelled at your mom. And I know that your other aunt, Rafaela, would try to, but because they've gotten into actual fistfights in the past, mm-hmm. she tried not to get too involved. But I remember it was pretty much an uproar where everybody was telling her, like, what's wrong with you? Like, you don't do that to your kids. You don't lock the refrigerator. You don't throw their homework in the middle of the street. And it seemed like everybody was trying to say something, mm-hmm. but she would twist it around and be like, oh, you don't understand. What they put me through, what they do this, what they, I got to make sure that everybody can eat. So I remember she would twist it around a lot. So we didn't really know what? It doesn't make sense. Mm-hmm. And then when our aunt took in the 5 kids, she was only used to having one child. Yeah. And so all of a sudden she had 5 more. And I remember that she was completely stressed out because there was just no discipline. Mm-hmm. And there was a special ed needs that she recognized mm-hmm. in your brother, and that went unnoticed for so many years, and until she mm-hmm. noticed it. And she just was at a point where it's like, one keeps running away, the other ones have no discipline, and I'm only used to having one child, and I don't know what to do. And I just remember her being completely overwhelmed and stressed and asking your mom, can you take your kids back? Are you good now? And she couldn't. And then at that point, she's like, I can't do it. I can't do it anymore.
Yeah. So she had them for 6 months that was a long time. Yeah, it's a long time. So, and I remember my mom, like, when I would talk to her, the few times I did, like, I'm getting classes, I'm trying to get my life together. I'm struggling. And that's her keyword. She's always struggling.
Struggling. Yes.
Yeah. So, she would tell me that, and I guess I talked a lot about my mom, but my dad, he was an alcoholic. He drank a lot, would pass out in the front, even before getting inside the house, he would pass out. He would come home, drink. I was a lot closer to my dad than my mom, just because he would listen to me and talk to me. But the alcohol was, a huge factor, where he was always drunk and, like, he himself, like, on himself in the closet. And it was just where he was just inebriated drunk.
He wasn't there to defend, like, as much as he would have wanted to. He couldn't defend because then the backlash would be on him.
Yes, and my mom was so mean when she like I'm not surprised that I haven't really heard the fights with one of our aunts, Rafaela, and but she was, like I said, you're either on her side or not on her side, and when you're against her, you are her enemy, and that's it. So,
right.
So that's how she would feel with my dad. She would kick him out. My dad slept outside many a times. My mom kicked him out. She would call the cops, and it was very huge when you fought against her. So my mom would hit my dad. So it was domestic abuse both ways, but a lot more from my mom what I remember. So growing up, I would tell my dad, like, look, Dad, we can leave my mom and we can do this together. I'll help you with the kids. And, like, we got this. And he always said, yeah, okay. But we never did it. So at this time, I was telling him, like, you do it. Like, I'll help you, go take the classes, go do this. And he did it. So my brothers and sisters went to the foster care. So when I found out, I immediately asked my aunt, can I get the social worker's number? I'm calling. I'm going to see where they're at. So I called, talked to her, and she told me they're in Chino. They're in a foster care. They're all together. So I asked, can I take them? She was surprised. She's like, how old are you? I'm like, I just turned 20, but I really want to take them. And she's like, at this location where they're at, they won't be there together for long. And I guess when I say together, so 5 of them went to foster care. I only took 4. So I didn't take my sister, who was 17 at the time. She was the one that would run away. Mm-hmm. She was, later on, I found out that she was prostituted by my mom's consent to get whatever she needed. So I just felt like one bad apple can ruin the rest of them. So mm-hmm. I made the personal choice not to take her in. And she was 17, so she was going to turn 18 pretty soon. So, so I didn't do that. And so my 4 brothers and sisters were together. Yeah, so I decided to take them in.
Now, at the time, you were in college too, right?
No. Right. So see, when I moved out when I was 17, I still was going to high school. But long story short, I didn't graduate high school. So, I went to high school when I had my brothers and sisters. Like, finished up my high school diploma.
Okay.
Yeah, so it took me, I think, 3 months to get everything together because you guys are familiar with the foster care system. You have to have a bed for each child. The fridge, they come and check multiple times your home to make sure it's adequate for children. And I was living by myself, so it wasn't adequate for poor children. So I had to get bed. So our aunt, she came and she brought me the bed that she had at her place. Yeah, so I got help from friends. One of my friend's grandmas gave me her old fridge, because I had just moved in as well. So so we kind of did that. And on November 3rd, 2007, they came to live with me. So I remember picking them up, and I had tried decorating the rooms really nice, like the boys, like it was camouflage army, and the girls, like it was, pinkish, and it was, a nice little room for them. Yeah, so they came to live with me, and it was a shocker the first night. First night, we were sleeping, and I remember my sister, like, my stomach hurts at 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, I have no medicine, nothing. Like, and I wasn't driving at the time. So when I was 17, my dad had plenty of DUIs, and he was taking me to work, and we had a checkpoint, and he's like, look, Jennifer, I cannot get this DUI. We're under a bridge. Like, I cannot. Like, if I get it again, I'll be in jail for a long time. Like, can we switch? Like, switch what? And he's like, you drive. And I knew how to drive. So I did. And I didn't have a license. So I got a ticket. So I wasn't able to get my license. And I didn't get it until I was 21, when I had to pay off that ticket that I had. Mm-hmm. So I wasn't driving. So I had to walk to the gas station. And, I bought some medicine. All right, here you go. Like, take this, And I remember telling them, at the beginning, it's going to be hard. We're probably going to have to eat peanut butter and jelly for the first, I don't know how long, but we'll get through it. And so shortly after that, kind of started getting our things going. I needed to get my license. So I got my license, got a car. I always thought that showing them not just how to behave and how to do things, was just telling them. It was also showing them, like me doing it. Right. So in that aspect. I'm like, what am I telling them? Go to school. School's important if I didn't even finish high school. So I went in, which was by one credit. So I went in, took one class, and I didn't even tell them. I just stay 1 hour after work. I would go, and I would attend it, complete the hours I needed, and then got my high school diploma. So they had no idea. I was embarrassed to tell them anything. Or that part, because they saw me as somebody, got most of the stuff together. Yeah. So, I mean, I had them for 10 years in total, 10 years. But there was a lot of stuff that had happened in between that, 10 years. So
now, during that time, those 10 years that you had them, how was their behavior? Did they behave well towards you, or did they see you as mom, or did they still see you as not mom? Like, did they see you as the authoritative figure?
So I think I've always respected them, so they respected me.
Okay.
But I remember within the first week, one of my sisters, Ashley, she did something that I didn't like in the kitchen or something. I forgot what it was. So then, I just reprimanded her. I'm like, I don't like it. Like, I don't want you doing that. So then she went into the room and she closed the door and she didn't want to talk. And it just reminded me that's what I would do when my mom would tell me something. You shut down, you just go to the room, and you don't think that they're going to talk to you anymore. So it was a lot of breaking those type of habits. So I went in and I'm like, what's wrong? She's like, you're not mad? I'm like, well, I mean, I was mad at that, but I'm not mad anymore. And it was really hard to adjust to that at the beginning, because we were not used to that. We were used to like, okay, well, you did something bad, like you don't talk to people after that, that part. A lot of like lying, hiding. They didn't have the support, from a parent. Like, as much as we have a mother and a father, and I mean, they're still alive and we have them. Even now, we don't have the support from them. So a lot of the things that they did, they had to do on their own and by themselves. And even like, okay, we need to brush our teeth every single day, like stuff like that. I had to teach them, okay, we're changing our clothing, and they just kind of got raised by us, which we didn't really know much. And then it was a lot of teaching and unteaching for them, but they behaved overall pretty good. I mean, there's times that they would get in trouble for this and that. And the one that was a little bit harder was Adrian, which was a little one. He was
the young.
So he was 7 at the time. So 7, and the oldest one was 14. So the oldest one was my brother, Jerry, at 14. Ashley was, sorry, I'm like, how old is she now? Sorry, like time gets to you. So she was about, I think 11 or 12. And then Cynthia must have been like 8 or 9. So they were little. And I remember like signing them up for school, like, see this 20-year-old, like, oh yeah, I'm signing up my brothers and sisters. And so initially it was just, I took guardianship. And then after a year was legal guardianship. I had the option to adopt, but I thought that was too concrete. Like, that it was too much, because when they told me, so I asked the difference, and, there's a lot of differences, but the one that stood out to me was, if you adopt, you take out your parents' name from the birth certificate and add yours on there. Oh. And that to me was like, whoa, like it was a lot for me to like swallow. I'm like, no, I mean, we still are brothers and sisters. Like, I just felt weird doing that.
Right.
So I took the legal guardianship. So that happened after a year of having them in 2007. I mean,
how were you? How did you adjust? Was that something foreign, or was it something more familiar, but now just more responsibility? Or, how were you feeling during that time, during that first year?
So I guess like my personality has just kind of like adapted to the situation. Like whatever comes, like I'll adapt. I've always, like I said, I always told my dad, like, all right, Dad, like, like, let's take him. We can do this. So I felt like the need to prove to my dad, like to everybody else, like, we can do it. Like, this is not that hard, like, why is it so hard? So I adjusted just fueled by, I guess, like proving them like we can do it. Because when I was thinking of getting them and when I got them, I got a lot of backlash from the family as well. And, like, why do you even get them? Yeah, like, why do you get them? They're fine there, just let them there. And so I had a lot of backlash. So I just felt like in some ways, like I'm proving something, to them and to everybody else. And also to myself, because I grew up saying this to myself, like, I can do it, like I see myself doing it. So I think I was just fueled by that. And genuinely, I did have the care for them. Like I always saw things like it's not the situation that you have. Like there's so much more to that. And I think that that shows in what I did with my brothers and sisters. So yeah, so I took them and I was like, all right, like let's get this ball going. Like let's work on it. I'll work on things like, all right, like how can we better ourselves? And my mom, to this point, she doesn't have a license. So in our family, a lot of our sisters recently got their license or haven't had their license. So that alone, just taking that, having that goal, overcoming it and, completing it was a huge thing for me. So just taking the little boundaries that we had in our mind from our parents and just breaking it. Okay, now let's go do this. Now let's go do that. So
right.
I was just,
victories.
Yeah, I was fueled by that. I was like, okay, let's do this. Like, we got this. So yeah, so the first year it was hard, but it was good. Like I said, I got my car the first year, my licensed car. And then at the second year, okay, like, let me go ahead and finish up my high school thing. And did that. We were living in Montclair, near like San Bernardino County area. So I decided to move to a nicer location where, the kids could go to a nicer school. So we moved. So my brother and both of my brothers, they share the room and my sister share the room. And I was working a lot, obviously, to, pay our bills and stuff. So I was working and I remember like coming home one day and my sister told me like, hey, like, I think something's going on with the boys. And long story short, I got to the bottom of it and they were having some type of, sexual things going on between both of them. So during this time, from day one that I got them, I decided it was very important for them to have therapy and be on therapy. So I would have a therapist come to the house every Tuesday and she would stay for 4 hours because she had to see all four. She would go to one of the rooms and talk to them and they would vent whatever they felt they needed. So when I found this thing out, I'm not the type to brush things under the rug. So I addressed it. I talked to my little brother first. He denied it. After a while, I told him like, all right, your big brother already told me, so you're lying to me now. And that was one thing that I was really big on. Like, I don't lie, like if you did things like sometimes you don't know why you did do things, but have respect for me and tell me the honest truth. So he said the truth. Then I went to the older one, same thing. He was having a hard time and then told me the truth. And like I said, I didn't know what to do. I was in shock, but you deal with things as, in that moment. So I called a therapist and I was just like, I don't know what to do. And I never called her, so this was an emergency. So she knew. So she says, well, I have to report it, but I would recommend for you to report it. I'm like, okay. So I did so. My older brother was arrested. He went to juvenile hall and we had that whole case going on. So that was one of the hardest things I've ever had to go through.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No,
because,
I remember.
Yeah, because I had to go to court and I had to sit, like, who do you sit with? My older brother and my younger brother, and I'm the legal guardian. So I would talk to the defense attorney and, I had to talk to both, like back and forth and like, where do I sit? And, it was very hard. Very hard.
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking like, wow, here's this young girl, because you were so young when you first started taking over and being a guardian. And then when this happened, I thought, well, what else could she have done? You need to protect the younger one, but you also want to protect the older one, but that's wrong. So it's like, well, what do? You can't, your hands are tied, and you did the most mature, the most responsible thing that even older people in the past or now wouldn't have done. They would have been like, oh, boys are being boys, leave it alone, or separate them, you know? And that doesn't help anybody, you know?
Yeah.
Because there's also, with the older boy, you found out why that was happening.
Yeah. So
And he needed help.
Yeah, so he was sexually abused when my parents lost their house or lost the home. He was being sexually abused by my dad's friend, which my dad's friend would come and bring him alcohol, and he was a family friend that I've known since I was little, and he would always request for my brother to go with him, and my brother's like, no, I don't want to go, I don't want to go, and he would take him, and he came home and told my dad like, hey, this is what's going on, and my dad drunk, and this is his friend who provided some alcohol, and it's a good buddy that he's known since Mexico. She was like, no, like, you're lying. So he got beat for saying something like that, and it continued. So it also continued when they were living with our aunt, and they were in foster care. So they just came to my house and working a lot as well, and they're in school, and the times that they had vacation I was still working, so it happened there as well. I also thought, like, I want to do the right thing, and I would like, if I had a child and I was going to a family party and they brought somebody who might do something to my child or like a family member, I would be devastated for not knowing. And I also did it, for the respect that I had for the rest of the family members, like, and if I grew up and had a child, would I feel comfortable leaving him around my daughter? And, the answer was no, I don't. So I decided, like, if I don't know what kind of help there is, but there is a consequence to your action, and this is it, and let's just take it and get better from it. So that was the kind of lesson that I wanted to teach them. And also, but I did get a lot of backlash for that as well with my parents, and you're lying, that's not true. And also my sisters, because here they are, and like the two sisters that I had with me, and that's their older brother. And how do you do that? We're a family here, and you're going against that. So it was a lot of that as well. That was one of the toughest things that I had to do, but eventually, it was the best for all of us. So after he got out of juvenile hall, he ended up staying at one of my friend's family, and there was no kids around. It was just my friend's grandma and uncle that lived there, and they were very much in the church. So he had that going on, and so he was there for a while.
Now, did he got therapy through that time? Did he not?
Yes. Through with the juvenile hall, he was there. Honestly, he was there for 3 months. He wasn't there that long. So both of my brothers, they had like mental, or what is it, like disabilities.
Okay.
So he also had it. So through the court system, he was able to, they saw him as incompetent to stand trial. So in that manner, it got dismissed, which, you can call it lucky or whatever the case was. So he was young at the time. But
it not so much lucky, but the system worked because he has the mental disability.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So,
and at the same time, they both got the help that they needed.
Yes.
So in this respect, the system worked.
Yes. So he ended up out there, with my friend's grandma, and so he would visit us. We would visit him, and it was nicer. It was just, I didn't want him to right away, okay, you got your consequence. Okay, now let's move in and be this little happy family again. I still was working a lot. At this time, I was already in college. So, I also left them alone a lot. I mean, they were older, but I left them alone a lot because I was working and also going to school. So I didn't want to have that pressure of like, okay, maybe something's going on at home. So I just thought it was easier that way.
Okay.
Not to happen there. Yeah. So during that time, like I said, I always wanted to be like the best role model for them. So working, going to school, and also, like, I mean, that's kind of like what I always wanted to do. I just never had the chance to, and they just kind of were the, like the fuel that I needed, and I was just like pushing through and getting things done that I wanted to do and I wanted them to do. And during this time, like, I think that they were thriving. They were going to school, getting good grades. They would try, they would get in trouble here and there. I mean, I have a funny like story. Like, there was one time I took the day off work, and so I was home, made a nice cooked meal, like that way, like, and I would try doing that. Like, for Valentine's, I would like make this nice dinner for us, and we would sit down and like have a card for them, and just do little things like that for them.
Mm-hmm.
So this time I'm cooking a meal, and they come home, and I'm so excited, like, hey, like, like, we're gonna have like a nice day. So my sister comes, the first one from school, and she tells me like, hey, I got in trouble. Like, I was like, oh, I forgot, like, not suspended, but she got in trouble. So she got a referral. So she had to go to, she has detention. Then my other sister comes, and she's in elementary, and she's like, hey, I got in trouble. I got detention as well. I put makeup on in school, and I'm not supposed to take makeup. And then like the other one comes, they got in trouble. So all four of them got in trouble. And so I'm like, really, like, I had this nice evening plan, and now you guys are all in trouble. So when they would get in trouble, I didn't want to hit them, although at times I did. But they would just kneel and like face the wall and like, okay, you stay there for a couple minutes, and then we'll talk about it. So I just remember like both of the girls being kneeled. Then my brother comes and like, what happened? What did you do? They're like, I got in trouble. He's like, oh my God, I got in trouble too. So they would come and, same thing, like, all right, well, kneel next to her, like the wall is big enough for you guys. And so it's kind of like that type of thing. So, I mean, we have good stories, I think, but we also have those tough times that were very hard. And, and ultimately, like, I was a broken child raising broken children. So right. I also had to accept that. And later on, because going through it, I think I was just like on autopilot where I don't even want to think about that, because if I start thinking about that, like, I'm just going to go down the spiral. So I chose not to. Yeah. So I mean, I don't know how you saw them when they were with me, because like I felt like they were better.
Yeah. No, yeah. I remember, like I said, I saw you guys grow up. So I remember thinking at first, when you were, 19, 20, I thought, oh my gosh, how is she going to do it? Like, who's going to help her? Where? And my first thought was, being Mexican and Catholic, mm-hmm. I thought, where are all the godparents? Like, why aren't each godparent picking up their child? That's what they're there for.
Yeah, I remember you saying that.
Yeah, and they're like, no, she wants to do it herself. I'm like, well, God, are you guys helping her? Like, who's helping her? And this was 2007. This was, I was like in financial ruin. I remember I'm like, I can't step in. I can't help. And then when you would come around and you would bring them, I'm like, wow, they look good. They look clean. They look healthy. Their hair's done right. Everything looks good, And I know Gabriel was pretty involved in helping. And you guys all look good. And then, when the incident happened with Jerry, I thought, oh no, that's hard. And I do remember, everybody saying like, oh, she shouldn't have said anything. She should have just separated them. Like, what's wrong with her? I'm like, no, she had to do something. Like, she has to, she had to protect them, because in the end, they both needed protecting.
Yeah.
And so, I've always admired you for that. Like I said, you were a little girl who was really into school, and I thought, that's nice. That's really good that you're into school. And then you were just pretty independent, and then you took on your brothers and sisters, and I thought, she is a very impressive person. She's nonstop. Like, she's working, she's keeping the kids together. Then you're in school, in college, and I thought, wow, she's a very impressive person. I don't know why we don't celebrate her more. Like, she should be celebrated, not put down, not like say, oh, what are you doing? Leave them in foster care. Like, no, you should help her and celebrate her.
Thank you.
Yeah, I've always been very impressed by you.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I mean, like, it's good to hear it, because I think it's just Mexicans. We really don't, hey, you're doing a good job. We look at the bad stuff. Yeah. You're like, you're doing a bad job, and let me show you how it's done, or let me tell you.
Yeah, let me tell you. They're not going to help you. Let me tell you what you're doing wrong. All these 10 items that you did right versus this one thing you did wrong.
Yeah. So that's very much how it went. So during this time, my mom was able to visit unsupervised. So she was able to come. My mom didn't really come around. I mean, the few times she did, it was just, I remember one time in court when we got the legal guardianship, we had to take the day off of school and work. So I remember we had to drive, and it was near LA, downtown LA. So we decided to go after to the Placita Vera and kind of just make it a day. So my mom was there, and she's like, I don't have a ride to go back home. I'm like, well, lady, my car only fits 5. It's me plus the 4 kids. I'm sorry. Like, I don't know what to do. She's like, well, I'll just walk home. And I mean, it's miles and miles away. So I'm like, oh, Jesus. I'm like, all right, come on. Well, I'm Mexican regardless. So you just fit in, kids, squeeze it.
Shove everybody in.
Yeah. So we took her to Placita Vera. We went out to eat, and, of course, she's like, okay, I'll eat. And, a little bit about my mom. She doesn't look at the food menu. She looks at the price. Like, whatever's the most expensive, she'll choose. So she chose something very, like, $20 plate. And I'm out there trying to have us, like, celebrate with my brothers and sisters, and like, oh, she has money. All right, good. So bill comes. I'm like, oh, separate. Like, I'm paying for these. Like, she's paying separately. And she's like, well, I don't have money. Like, well, what do you mean you don't have money? Like, why'd you order food? Or why, you should have told me this before. Like, well, you said we're going to go out to eat. I'm like, no. Like, we are, like, us, So, and to me, like, it never clicked for her. Like, I'm doing all this, like, for your kids,
Right. I'm doing your job.
Yeah. Like, it's always about her, and what she can get out of it. So it was really hard to have her around because she didn't comprehend that aspect of it. And not that I'm asking anything from her. It was just, I need the help. Like, I mean, not that I need the help. It's like, I pay attention, like, like, doesn't it click for you, So she always wanted something, and she's always struggling, so she wants help. So yeah, so that was kind of like her thing. I remember one time she did want to take one of my sisters. I went to work on a Saturday, so dropped her off at my mom's, and I was going to pick her up when I got out of work, so just 8 hours. And my sister was probably 13 at the time. She wanted her hair dyed blondish. So I told her, give me straight A's and I will pay for it. And that was always my thing. Give me the grades and I will do it. If you're not giving me the grades, don't ask me for anything. Also, my brothers and sisters had allowance, so you can save up your money, so that type of thing. Mm-hmm. And I picked her up. I picked up my sister. She had highlights in her hair. So my sister, I mean, shame on you. You shouldn't. But she's 13. She's going to get as much as she can. Mm-hmm. And that one time she wanted to do something for the kids. So I was very upset because I told her, how dare you? Like, you don't see her every day. This is the first time you saw her this year. And now you are changing the way she looks and without telling me, like, so I just kind of made it a big deal. And so she was just like that. She wouldn't see the big picture. And everything was like, oh no, she had the authority, not me, So yeah, and my dad, he never really came around. He would come around and like, oh, I don't know where to live. So I said, you can't live with us, but here's $60, get a Motel 6. I don't know what to tell you. So it was just that type of relationship with them. But they always, like my brothers and sisters, they always craved that relationship with their parents all the time. And I always left the door open for them, but they saw that, like it wasn't me. And
well, especially since they were so young at the time of separation.
Yeah. They
don't remember what it was like.
They don't. And I think that was one of the, like, I had to see that because in my mind, and I'm still young, I was 20 something, so I would tell them like, I'm giving you this better life type of thing. Like, be grateful, or just, kind of walk up these steps with me. And they weren't, like, they were kind of looking back and they didn't understand what was going on because they were walking, but they weren't, when they looked back, they didn't understand. I mean, even now, I think it's hard for them to comprehend the whole thing, and like the whole aspect of it. I mean, now they're older, but we learned a lot. And then one of the hardest parts was, sometimes I had to put the mom hat on and other times I had to put the sister hat on because, we're playful, or, blah, blah, blah. But then they would do something and, now I have to be the mom. So
right.
That was also a challenge where I quickly had to adjust to, and there was no ifs, ands, or buts. And I also had them when they were teenagers. So that was not easy. It was very, very challenging. They were pushing the limits, and they had the structure that they had, but I mean, that wasn't very solid that they had their whole lives. They had it just during that time. And also, my other sisters would help. So the other older ones, when I would go somewhere or I was going out, because I mean, I was 21 and I already had four of them. So when I would go out, I would drop them off, and my sisters would take care of them. But they also saw things the way my mom saw things. Like, so they're like, oh, Jennifer, she just thinks that she knows everything, and she wants to do this and that, and she doesn't see you guys and as what you guys want to do, and she doesn't care for that. So, and like, in many other ways they would say it, but they weren't pushing these limits that I was giving them. Like when they would go there, they would do the opposite of what they were doing with me. Mm-hmm. So that also didn't solidify that structure, and they were helping. So what am I, I don't know, like.
Do you think that they just weren't able to break that cycle the way that you were trying to break them?
Yeah. I mean, even till now, yeah, I think that they saw things as they were given, and I'm still shocked that I still have like these barriers and boundaries in my mind that like they're not supposed to be there. Like these were just built from fear and like everything else that was given to me by my parents, and my upbringing. And I mean, we'll talk about it later, but right now I'm doing my master's, and like none of my sisters, like I think one of them graduated. Well, besides the ones I read, but so 3 in total graduated from high school. The other ones haven't. Nobody has gone to college. So like it's insane. Like, and I think the way that they see me, it's like I don't know. Like we don't really see eye to eye now because I don't have a lot of excuses, and the excuses I have, I'm pushing through them. Mm-hmm. So I think we have a very different view of life.
So maybe it's something that you made a decision a long time ago that you were going to be different. You were going to change what you didn't like, and you were going to make it different for yourself. And maybe they see it more like, well, this is what life is, and this is what I'm supposed to deal with. I'm just supposed to take it.
Yeah. So a lot of it, in my opinion, I see them like writing the story the same way my mom wrote it to us. And, I see it. And, it's easy to see in words and not words. But I don't know. I've always thought, like if somebody asked me, like, what color is this, or like this chair, I'm like, whatever color you want it to be. Because once we start labeling, like, oh, this is my mother and this is the mother I'm supposed to have, then we start comparing like different people. And just because you had a mother this way does not mean I need to have a mother that way. Like I had a mother, I learned so much, and I'm very grateful for all the lessons I've had. It still hurts to talk about stuff. And I mean, even talking about this, like, I was like, whoa, like I didn't realize I had so much in me still, but I embrace it. And I'm happy that I came from that and I've overcome it. But I'm not a big fan of comparing myself to other people or so forth. Although, I still feel I'm only human. But I think I've changed those views of things. And they still see it as my mom wasn't this, my mom wasn't that. And, so it's different.
Right. So how would you say, or how would you describe your relationship with your mom now?
So okay. So now I have my daughter. I have a daughter. She's 3 years old. And so when I was pregnant, like I'm like, whoa, like this is. I think it changes, and like there's more empathy to a mom. So I like felt this thing. I was like carrying this, life inside of me. So I wanted to reach out to my mom a little bit more, and I tried. Well, I'm gonna back up a little bit just because I feel like this was like a big crucial point for me. When in 2014, one of my good friends from high school, I was holding a women's circle, and I don't know what, I'm like, I want to go. So I started going every Wednesday, and it was a group of, I think, 8 girls and herself, and it was just holding space and kind of digging in and seeing what comes up. Right. The first week we talked about moms, and just like the different type of moms that we all had, and I was very hesitant about sharing my story because I feel like it's very long, deep, and I don't like just to talk about it to anybody. So it took me a while, and I was the last one to talk, and I told him the story, although my friend knew about it. And I had some high school friends there, but they didn't know why I had my brothers and sisters. So I opened up a little bit, and, she encouraged for us to reach out to our parents. And so I did. So I talked to her, and, I think a lot of the times we hold back because, I don't know, the fear of like what's going to happen. But so I talked to my mom, like, look, you hurt me a lot when I was little, and like, it hurts, I'm an adult now and it still hurts me. And so I finally was able to get the I'm sorry from her. And at that point, I was able to let go of a lot. So I felt like, okay, 2014, like I'm good. And then 2016, I got pregnant and like more stuff came up. I'm like, oh my God, like I thought I was over this, but I guess I wasn't. But being a mom was just different. So yeah, I reached out to her, and it was just like, kind of thankful for the life, for, giving birth to me. But so now I talk to her. I can't count on her for a lot of things, but I talk to her like, hey, how are you? Like, I'm kind of doing this. Like, she follows me on my social media. So like, I saw that your daughter did this, and oh, my granddaughter. But I mean, she's only seen her maybe twice or three times. So it's just a mother at a distance. That's the type of mother, the relationship we have.
Okay. And what about the relationship with your two brothers and two sisters that you helped raise?
Okay, so we didn't talk for a while. When I got pregnant, I had my youngest brother, Adrian, who was 17 at the time, and he was going through a rough time, acting out and selling drugs and, all that stuff. So I told him, like, okay, look, now I'm pregnant, and I wasn't living with my husband now. Like, I was just living with Adrian, and I told him, like, look, you're going to turn 18 in a few months. I'm going to have this child, and like, I cannot keep on doing this. Like, now I have something else, and I'm not going to do this anymore. So it's either you come and live with me for 3-4 months, or I can relinquish the guardianship, and you can go back to foster care. So back in 2007, they would only help foster kids until they were 18. In 2010, they passed this new law where they can help them until they're 21. So I told them, look, if I relinquish guardianship, you go back to foster care, and then you're able to get help until you're 21. So do you want to take that route, or do you just want to stay with me and, ride it out until you're 18, and then after 18, you go your own way? So he chose to go back to foster care, which I relinquished guardianship. So I didn't have him after, when I was pregnant. So I think, for them, it felt like I left them, I abandoned that part, and now I'm starting my life. So they weren't too happy. Also, my husband, he's very, very assertive, and he's not going to take any BS from anybody. So if if my brothers are not here and my sisters are here to lift me up and, providing any help or, joy, then don't come around. So, we drifted apart, and we didn't talk for, I would say, like, well, one of my sisters showed up to the hospital when I had my daughter, but then after that, started talking again, and there were some other issues, and so they stayed away. So my two sisters are actually like reaching out and talking to me, but I feel like a horrible person saying this, but I choose not to have my brothers in my life, and that is because both of them have done the whole sexual abuse, which they also went into juvenile hall for that and so forth. But I cannot put my daughters through that. So I choose not to have them in my life. And so they've reached out, but I don't know. I'd rather not.
Okay. Which, I mean, it's understandable. Wow, Jennifer. Well, thank you so much. Like I said, I really have admired watching you grow up and watching you become the woman that you are. And I know there's so much more to come. And at this point, I want to ask you to come back and talk about your motherhood journey with your child that you birthed. If that would be okay.
Yes, definitely.
We'll talk again soon.
Thank you.